Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of repainting my first ever miniatures from the Dark Souls Boardgame. Today we're taking a look at the two larger miniature enemies from the main set, the Sentinels and the Large Greataxe Hollows. We only have a few episodes left of this series and the giveaway is still running, so be sure to stick around to find out how to enter.
And engage in jolly cooperation.
In the main set you get two models of both the Sentinels and the Large Hollows. These guys deal way much more damage than the other minis, hence why they're bigger and there's fewer of them. So here are the ones I did last year. Firstly, looking at the Sentinels of Anor Londo, and you can see that I went way too strong on the gold of the armour and it's lost a fair bit of detail because of it. With the Hollows, they are pretty much as basic can be, lacking any real depth to the cloths or the skin or even the axe. So first up, let's get them primed with some black before we kickstart painting them. First off, I'm going to be zenithal highlighting them both like I have done in all the previous repainting videos, using this nice little handle that I 3D printed to get a good grip of the minis. I'm going to load up the airbrush with white ink and from a high up angle just spray down onto the minis to generate the light source. I'm also going to give a nice little spherical lighting onto the shield of the Sentinel to give it that nice spotlight look, to which we'll build up some layers of greys too. Then I'm just going to do the same thing for the big bald hollow chappy. Now I'll be painting the hollow first, as he should be the simpler of the two, and we can then work our way up to painting the Sentinel. So first up we'll be painting the shawl of the hollow, and I'll be doing that with some Basilicanum grey contrast paint, which should react nicely to the zenithal highlight and give up some interesting tones for us to work with. Then also applying some of this to the trousers as well. Then I'm just jumping right into basing the skin, and for that I decided some more contrast paint would be good for this, so I went with the Skeleton Horde contrast, and a couple layers applied should give us a nice undead look. It's then time to build up some layers onto the clothes, starting off with some darker grey with the Ishan grey layer paint, and just applying a thin layer of this to the lower recesses. Then moving up through the tones, I want to start highlighting some areas, and I'll do just that with some Celestra grey, and I'll be doing various little strokes and scratches across the clothes, mainly focusing on the exterior areas where more light will be landing. You can see here I'm starting to build up the different tones to it. Mechanica Standard Grey is a good kind of mid-tone between the two, so I'm going to use a very thin layer of this to help blend the two together a bit more. Moving on up through the lighter grey tones to Administratum Grey, and adding even smaller highlight tones to the edges and higher parts of the clothes. Then to finish off this highlight job we've just done, I'm going to do a very slight application of White Scar over the areas of the lighter grey just to further enhance them and bring them out from the darker tones. Once done, I'm then thinning down some Abaddon Black to a glaze consistency and using this to wash over the shadowy region of the clothes just to bring back some of the darker tones a bit more. For his little booties, I'm gonna just base them with some Rhinox hide and then highlight them on the areas that are facing upwards with some Mournfang Brown. Then to build up some tone to the skin, I'm just going to start off with a base coat of Moorcast Bone over the Skeleton Horde contrast paint that we applied earlier. And I'm going to use some Wraithbone on the skin to highlight the little areas that stick out most on the limbs and the face, to give it some of that light reflection and make it stand out a bit more. I'm also adding a little bit of darker brown to areas of the skin that sort of meet the cloth, just so it looks like it's casting a little bit of shadow onto the skin. Then to finish that off, I'm going to be dry brushing on some metallic colours to the axe, starting off with some darker Iron Warriors to the darker parts that were left behind from the zenithal highlighting, and then to the whiter parts of the weapon I'm going to be using some Runefang Steel just to bring that metallic shine to it. That is the hollow done, and it's time to move on to the Sentinel. And for this I'm going to start loading up some paint to the wet palette, starting off with some Abaddon Black, then some Ishan Grey and then Cantor Blue, some Celestra Grey and then finally some Corax White. So I'm then beginning with the shield and using some very thin down Ishan Grey at the base of the shield for the darkest point. Then with a mix of Ishin Grey and Kantor Blue, I'm moving up the shield and adding this grey-blue mix above the darker grey. And with that applied, I'm taking the same blue-grey mix and making it into a glaze consistency to go back over that join line and help blend it together a bit. Then just taking a lighter grey nicely thinned down and just adding it to the rest of the shield. And you should start to see this sort of like nice, even, smooth transition starting from the base of the shield all the way to the top of the shield. So with that shield looking pretty cool, I'm going to take some Corax White and edge highlight the little midpoint and then add some little scratch marks across it for some added little detail. And then for the cloth that's draped over the center of the body, I'm whacking on some Celestra Grey all over it, keeping it thin so we can still see the gradient underneath, and it just allows us to build upon it. With some white, I'm going to add it to the base of the material and then blend it upwards into the grey and also use it to highlight the little ridges and the wrinkles around the shoulders. And then with some darker greys, I'm blending in the darker shades around the sides and the cloth wrinkles just to break up these tones a little bit. I'm also then taking a thin layer of the blue that we applied to the shield and I'm just going to start to build it up on these little side parts of the cloth. I'm not really sure what the technical term for this is. Does anyone know? Like it looks like they're just like wearing a banner. Like, what would you call that? Anyway, for some added colour and highlight to these blue parts, I'm just going to add in some Lothian blue, but really only focus it in the centre of this blue so that it can blend out into the darker blue the further it goes away from the centre. Then back to the shield for a sec because this is the main focus of the model. I'm just going to use some Retributor armor and dry brush it onto the sides of the shield. But you can see here I'm leaving gaps between the gold so we can create this sort of staggered bounce light effect. So once the gold has been applied, I'm going to then add in some gold shadows, which will be done with Rhinox hide, and dry brushing that on in between the gold marks we've just done. So you can see here how it creates that sort of staggered look. Now, Auric Gold is going to be what ties the shield together. It's a great, bright, vibrant gold layer paint, and I'm going to use it to edge highlight these gold parts, and also very finely add in little scratch detailing to it, which will help bring the two shades together nicely. Then it's just a case of painting up the center detailing of the shield with the gold, just to finish it all off nicely. For the armor and the weapon, I'm just going to fairly apply a dry brush of Leadbelcher to it, following the light guidelines I've already set with the Zenithal highlight, and also giving that staggered bounce effect to the halberd as well. And like we did with the gold and brown bounce effect, I'll be adding in some Runefang steel to help add highlight to the armor and fill in those nice little light areas. Then just a light dry brush of gold over the armor to give it a little tint rather than overpowering it with the color like we did in the original one. And then just to finish off, it's my old arch nemesis, Null Oil. So that I don't overpower and ruin this paint job I've done, I'm just going to be making sure to add very thin layers of this stuff, only using it as a wash so it can seep down into all the little nooks and crannies and give it a little boost of detail to the metallics. And with that, it's job done for the both of them. This is how the Sentinel looks, and when you compare it to the one that I did last year, the difference is pretty apparent. We've kept a lot of the detail in the armor in this one, and the most noticeable difference for me, I think, is in the shield. The shield on the new one looks 1,000 times better. It actually looks like I've thought about it instead of just farting a load of color on, and I think it really benefits from that. Whilst editing this video, I realised I forgot to show the comparison of the large hollow to the old one, but you know, you get the picture. You saw the hollows from the last one. The Sentinel was really the main boy of today. You know, hollows have had their time. So we are now past the halfway point of this series, and it's time to carry on with the giveaway. As explained in the previous repainting videos, on Sundays I'll be releasing a new video as part of this repainting series, and by the end of it we will have a fully painted collection of the main board game set. This is the prize, this exact and complete Dark Souls board game, painted by me. To enter, all you have to do is make sure you're subscribed to the channel and leave a comment below answering this week's question. I will be picking a winner from the comments across all videos in this repainting series, so the more videos you comment on, the more chance you have to win. Last week I asked you to tell me what area you thought was the worst in all FromSoft games, and this week I want to know what character or boss you would like to see me print and paint that I haven't already done. Who knows, maybe I'll do it. So leave your recommendations in the comments and I will definitely look to give them a go. As ever gang, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop it a like and hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell to receive notifications whenever a new video drops if you feel so inclined. I would like to finally thank you again for spending your time with me as I go through this repainting series. I am really enjoying doing it and comparing to where I am now to where I was when I started painting these models. Hopefully you're enjoying it too, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out, gang, and don't you dare go hollow.